A very good morning to you and welcome to this special broadcast of Freedom Day celebrations marking 20 years exactly since South Africa first gained its freedom and democracy. It's a wonderful opportunity, I guess, to reflect on the successes and challenges of the past 20 years. I'm your host, Peter Ndoro. Now, during the course of the broadcast, we'll be crossing to our reporters on the south lawns of the Union Buildings in Pretoria, where the official program of the day is taking place, and it's taking place under the theme South Africa, a better place to live in. Here in studio, I've got a guest, Thamsanqa Maqubela. He's a contributing author to the book South Africa at 20, for better or worse, and I'm going to be chatting to him a little bit later on. Hopefully we might also have another guest, but I'll give you more details about that guest later on. Right now, though, before we start, let's engage with our reporters that are on the grounds at Union Buildings, and let's start with Yolisa and Jamela. Yolisa, a very good morning to you. Give us a sense of what's happening there already this morning.
On this glorious day, of course, good morning, Peter. Thank you very much. We're at the Union Building lawns. On this glorious day in that year, in 1994, freedom was indeed proclaimed in this country. Today, while this country has a myriad of problems, of challenges that have to be dealt with on a daily basis, we do know, of course, that there's a lot of freedoms that we're celebrating. There's a lot of freedoms that we want to reflect on as we're bringing you all the events today as they happen. From very early this morning, thousands of South Africans colorfully, with the colorful garbs and all, have converged here. Of course, earlier as well, the interfaith commissions were here as well to pay tribute to the heroes that we have lost. We're coming to you from the tent with eminent persons. Of course, you can see that not a lot of people who understand the live broadcast. So, noise from time to time that you're going to have to bear with us. But first, let's try and reflect in about 5 minutes of a package, the 20 years that have been till today.
Welcome to the Union Buildings. I'm at the southern lawns of the Union Buildings, mingling with hundreds of people who have come to grace this historic event. To them, this event marks bittersweet memories, because we have also the elderly who have been bussed from across the country to come and be part of these celebrations. Obviously, we know that this is the first time that we have the Freedom Day celebrations without Madiba since his passing in December. So many people that I've spoken to before this, the start of our broadcast, were saying that this is yet another opportunity to pay tribute to the man who became the first democratically elected president. The theme of today's event is South Africa, a better place to live in, and we're expecting President Zuma to actually come and tell the nation about what has been achieved in the past 2 decades and challenges that are lying ahead. Obviously, after this event, the president will also bestow national orders to eminent South Africans and foreign nationals at this Fako Makato Presidential Guest House. So, indeed, a very good day. The sunrise also adding up to this excitement. And back to you, Peter Ndoro in Auckland Park.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Sepo Ikaneng, who's one of our reporters, joining Yolisa out in Pretoria at the Union Buildings for the Freedom Day celebrations, and we'll be crossing to them throughout the course of the next hour. Now, today marks, as we were saying, 20 years exactly since the people of South Africa had an opportunity to vote for the first time in their numbers. The majority, of course, couldn't before 1994. And many will remember that day that were old enough. And one person who does remember that day, because in fact it was probably his first opportunity, had there been democracy anyway, to vote. And that's Thamsanqa Maqubela, who's joining us now. And Thamsanqa, thank you very much for joining us in studio. I know that you're a contributing author to this book here, South Africa at 20, for better or for worse. And I'm just wondering, as you cast your mind back to 20 years ago, I have my own memories, but you were a young man. What is your memory of that day, 1994, and where did you vote?
It was, I think, a very wonderful day. Looking back now, one realizes, how long one has come from. You know, that day, actually the most significant day was that 1990 when Tatu Madiba was released from prison, and coming back to casting my first vote when I needed to have voted anyway. You know, so I feel privileged to have been a first year at varsity in 1994, and when I voted, I was in Vanderbijl Park. And looking back to that day, you realize that the legends who stood before us, how much they've sacrificed to ensure that we have not only the freedom, but the responsibility to translate the fruits of that freedom to many other South Africans and many other people of the world.
You were at an age where, your own future was, you know, at 20, whatever it is,
21.
You're busy thinking about the rest of your life and your future. And the country was also thinking about the future and what was to come. And I just wonder, when you look back now, you've got two things. You've got to look at your own life, what's happened in the 20 years, and it's happened at the same time as the country. How have you experienced the last 20 years as an individual and also as an observer of the country's history?
Peter, there was a confluence of change. And I think my generation, we're part of the fortunate generation. Change was happening very fast. When you find yourself at a university, at that time, you were fortunate. I remember we were required at the Valley University of Technology to, when you're a best student, you know, we had a lot of money simply because, one, I was at a university coming from a underprivileged background and doing very well. I mean, I had very good grades. I was scoring in the 80s and 90s. And that for me was a showcase to say, the policy of massification in higher education was a necessary one. Because when I was there, I was a minority at Val. When being a black student, we were a minority. But I made sure that I did not stay a minority. So it has helped propel me not only to stay at Val. I mean, a year after that, I went to Charles Sturt University in Australia as part of an exchange program as a result of that change that took place. So South Africans who were at that time realizing the importance of that day as a freedom with responsibility. When you look back today, that's where I am today, because of people's sacrifices. And again, as I said, it was a confluence of opportunities. So even if you were a low performer, because of the vastness of opportunities, you were forced to do something about your life.
All right, so 20 years on, what would you say have been the highlights of our successes, and what have been the challenges, you think, 20 years on as a country? The theme today is a better place to live. Is that your feeling at this time?
When I look back, had it not been because of the changes that took place, I would not have gone to university. That's number one. When I look back today at many South Africans who are unemployed, and when I look to those that are actually graduates but are still unemployed, I realize that that's why my theme is taking South Africa from the place of being a good country to a great country. My highlight really was in 2010.
World Cup? Not
World Cup. My highlight was in 2010, Peter, because in 2010 I took a decision. I was running, I just resigned as a CEO of Unitech. I was running my own business. But then I had a challenge to be asked. I was asked to come and rescue an organization, SADA, you know, an NGO that was built to focus on helping unemployed graduates, capacitate them, give them opportunities for work and work exposure.
Right.
And for me, yes, we had World Cup. It was a highlight, but for me, it was a decision to say, here's this organization with no capital, no funding, but I'm requested to help it. And I took that decision. I'm grateful to my wife, Sandisa, and my family who supported me to say, yes, you can do it. And turning an organization that was almost $500,000 in debts, and in 3 years, where it operates a budget of over 100 million, for me, that is a highlight.
All right.
And as a result of that, we have over 3,000 graduates who are actually currently either on internship programs, on graduate programs, or fully employed.
We'll chat a little bit more about that because we also want to reflect a little bit on some of the things that have been happening and what we're celebrating here today. And 20 years on, Freedom Day, where did it all come from? Well, let's take a look now.
Live from the Union Building lawns, or rather South Lawns, we are here to reflect what's happening today here. The official program, of course, President Jacob Zuma has, the motorcade of President Jacob Zuma has in fact just arrived. We know that there's a long program today whereby South Africans will be reflecting on what happened 20 years ago till today. Hundreds of South Africans converged here from very early this morning in colorful garbs, many of them very excited to celebrate this day. And as I said earlier, while a myriad of challenges have been experienced by South Africans, we cannot for once take for granted the freedoms that we've attained. As you can see on your screen there, the brass marching around here. This is, of course, one of the significant, colorful things that happen every time that South Africans are celebrating these auspicious occasions. Behind us here, where we're standing, we have eminent South Africans who will be celebrating with us this day. But we've got Lebogang Maile, who is the Minister, or rather the MEC in Gauteng of Arts and Culture and Sport, who's going to reflect on this day. But rather, Lebu, perhaps we should hold off a bit because the President is now being welcomed on the stage and we might not hear each other very well. The program is going to start very shortly, but we will reflect that, of course, for you, and you'll pardon us from time to time. We will have to stop and reflect on what's happening on the stage. As is happening now, the President is going to start the official program. He's going to that particular amphitheater or podium where he's going to be reflecting on the 21-gun salute. But perhaps Lebu Maile, who is the MEC of Arts and Culture in Gauteng and Sports, can give us a reflection of what the President is expected to do when he sits on that particular chair.
Well, I think at this point the South African National Defence Force is going to salute the President, and as you can hear, the 21-gun salute as well, as part of celebrating.
Let me hasten to please reflect again on what's happening here. Apologies to Lebu Maile. We need to just reflect as South African on the 21-gun salute.
You may be seated. An air display by the Silver Falcons will now commence.
Welcome again to the southern lawns of the Union Buildings. An excitement. We have lots of young people chanting songs of liberation. With me, I'm having the anti-apartheid struggle veteran and also a former Umkhonto Wesizwe operative, Mayor Ayanda Dlodlo. Tell me about your feelings today. How are you feeling? Because you spent many years in exile. Did you have it in any doubt that you will experience 1994, where we had our people voting for the first time?
First and foremost, I'm a military veteran, not a veteran of struggle.
Yeah.
I've been in the struggle for many years, starting from my childhood. But that day of 1994 came to us as the most wonderful thing that any nation and any people could experience. It came at a time where our people were losing lives. Everybody was getting impatient with the system of apartheid. The world gave us all the support that we needed as a people to get our liberation.
Obviously, 20 years gave us time to reflect on what we have achieved and challenges ahead. Would you be proud to say that you have managed to deliver on the 1994 electoral promises to improve the lot of the lives of South Africans?
If you look at what other countries have done in more than 300 years of freedom, of democracy, in 20 years we have achieved, I think, much more than we could have achieved in any other time. What we say as the African National Congress and as a government is that what we have achieved, much more could still be done. We still have another 20, 40, 60 years that we're going to celebrate. And in all of those years, we'll be improving the lives of our people. It's not an overnight thing. Our people are getting impatient, but it is for time for us to step up our mark and do the best that we can as a government.
Ayanda Dlodlo, thanks very much for your time. We really appreciate it. As you can see behind me, lots of people are very much excited. They want to be part of this event, and I think for them this is a memorable time. And now I'm handing over to my colleague Yolisa Njamen.
Thank you, Tsepo. On the southern lawns of the Union Buildings, I've got Lebogang Maile, rather the MEC in Gauteng of Sports, Arts and Culture, who's going to just give us a reflection of what we can expect, or rather what South Africans can expect today. Lebo, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for being patient with us, of course. Tell us just if you can reflect, what can South Africans expect today from the program specifically?
Well, today it's about celebrations. We're going to see a lot of fun. There's a new freedom song that has been composed and choreographed by Somizi. We're going to have the South African National Defence Force, as you have already seen, they've started displaying what they're capable of, but also saluting the president and leading in the singing of the national anthem. And you'll obviously have the state president addressing the nation.
Lebo is a young person. A whole lot of freedoms we appreciate in this country that have been attained since 1994. But as a young person, a whole lot of young people are unemployed in this country. So how does one reflect on a freedom when they feel like they are not participating in it fully?
Well, since 1994, as a country, we have achieved a lot. We have laid down a foundation. We've created a conducive environment for democracy and freedom. And we've also created a lot of opportunities for our people. And we've been the first to admit, as the ANC-led government, that there's more that needs to be done. And hence we are saying, let's work together to move South Africa forward. Let's put our hands together to confront the challenges that are facing us. I think it's unfortunate that you still have people living in abject poverty. You still have people unemployed. You still have people not able to access higher education. And we have said we are going to work very hard in the next coming 5 years to continue with the good work that we have done.
And of course, while all politicians are electioneering at this point, a lot of problems or challenges are reflected and highlighted. One would say that the peak now, because everyone sees the problems that we have, and it doesn't particularly help perhaps when people like the eminent Archbishop Desmond Tutu says they will not vote for the ruling party, who has been, of course, a stalwart of the ruling party and struggle.
Well, I think we all respect the Archbishop, and I think it's just unfortunate that maybe he's abusing the access to media that he's having, because there are many other South Africans who have views about who they're voting for and who they're not voting for. I think what we expect of the Archbishop is to encourage people to vote for whoever they want, and he must also exercise his choice and vote for whoever he wants. He doesn't have to announce who he's voting for, because when he was voting for the ANC, he never announced. We don't even know whether he did vote for the ANC, so I don't think that we are interested to know which party he's going to vote for. What we are interested in is that he must exercise his right. He has been part of the struggle. He has fought for this right to vote, and he must encourage even the younger people to enjoy this right to vote. And he must just leave political parties to persuade people if people are going to vote for them or not. So otherwise would have to give every single South African, all those people who are registered, the 26 million, each one of them must be given a right on TV to announce which party they're going to vote for. I just think it's just that abuse of freedom of expression.
And while we have these challenges, of course, today is about unity in diversity and celebrating this day in particular and all the gains that we have made.
Yes, certainly. We need to reflect as a nation from where we come from and where we want to go. And we must encourage our people to continue working together. We have made strides as a country since '94. If you look back from where we come from, you will agree that a lot has been achieved in terms of reconciliation, in terms of nation building a rainbow nation, living in harmony, in peace. We have created stability as a country, and this is a solid foundation that we must build on as a country.
Lebogang Maile, thank you very much, and thank you very much for being patient with us because we've had to cut you a couple of times. Lebogang Maile, MEC for Sports and Culture in Gauteng. Taking it back to you in the studio, Peter.
Ayanda, thank you very much indeed. That's Ayanda. Speaking earlier on to Lebogang, Yolisa, speaking to Ayanda Dlodlo a little bit earlier on. Okay, so we've got quite a bit that we want to get through. We've got a studio guest here, but we've also got a few packages that we've lined up for you, just to take you back in time and also, I guess, look a little bit into the future. Now, so South Africa is celebrating or facing significant developmental charges. The country has made great strides in reversing some socioeconomic disparities created by years of apartheid rule. South Africa celebrates 20 years of freedom and democracy. There is great expectation that the government leaders will use the opportunity to take stock of the successes and challenges of the past 2 decades. Presidential correspondent Tsepo Ikaneng compiled this report for us.
Since 1994, the South African economy has expanded by 83%. The country's GDP is now valued at about 3.2 trillion rand. In the past 2 decades, the ANC-led government has provided 16 million people, mostly poor households, with basic financial assistance in the form of social grants. The intention of these interventions has been to cushion households from abject poverty. Over 10 million people have been allocated houses. There's also been a massive improvement in provision of basic services such as electricity, water and sanitation. The South African government has also been instrumental in turning the tide against the HIV/AIDS pandemic. The country has one of the largest ARV rollout programs with approximately 2 million people on treatment. The intervention has resulted in increased life expectancy, but the scourge of corruption has seriously hampered government's drive to deliver basic services to the people. A wave of often violent service delivery protests has been largely attributed to corrupt practices by politicians and public officials.
Because you are much more aware of the corruption and the weaknesses of government and the errors and the faults, etc., it might look as if, oh my God, these are overwhelming problems. But if you consider the fact that you come into democracy in '94 with empty coffers, not empty coffers today, you see. Now, what has happened? Right, that you start out with empty coffers, now you have fuller coffers 20 years later. Right? But if you look at the levels of spending by government in that 20 years, most of them have gone through the roof in the area of education, in the area of housing, etc., etc., etc. People say corruption. The corruption is there and it is very dangerous and it's extremely damaging, but it is not to the extent where it has virtually bankrupted the state, which is what you had in 1994.
Whilst a sustained economy has helped to ensure a social security bill for all, there are fears that government is failing to bridge the gap between the rich and poor. Some leading economic analysts regard South Africa as the most unequal society in the world, with a significant increase in income inequality. But government has disputed the assertion, arguing that state welfare policies such as the provision of free basic water, healthcare, social grants and electricity have come in handy for the majority of the population. But Dr. Paulo Jordan does concede that the widening gap between the rich and poor are a threat to social stability.
We should be concerned because those sorts of huge disparities in income between the very rich and the very poor do break down the degree of social cohesion that you have in the society. There are people who might feel they don't belong. And insofar as they feel they don't belong, they could also feel, well, we might as well be spoilers. So that is a potentially explosive situation. So you have to close that gap.
A recent study has revealed that the effects of South Africa's failing education system impacts negatively on skills development and provision of quality job opportunities. South Africa has a national unemployment rate of about 25.6%, and only 40% of South Africans aged between 20 to 34 have a job. The poor quality of education has produced learners and graduates who are ill-equipped for life in a modern, industrial and technologically sophisticated world.
If we do not make a real success of our education, and more broadly human resource development, we haven't really broken the back of poverty. Human resource development is much bigger and much wider than education system. Youth is a code name for human resource development.
Despite the many pressing socio-economic challenges, some residents have praised government's achievements so far.
In these 20 years that we have got in our democracy, we have made a huge difference. As we are speaking today, I'm part of the young people that have achieved through to free education from primary school to secondary school. And also I had that opportunity to go to tertiary, although I couldn't finish my studies due of other problems. But through to this government, we have done a lot. Even health service care, they are for free. If you need to go to hospital, they will assist you to get free health care. And also there are a lot of issues that are happening with youth development.
These young people who will be voting for the first time on May the 7th say there's a lot to celebrate in the country's 20 years of freedom.
I'm happy. It's all going well because opportunities are kicking in. I have no limit to what I want to do.
I am proud to be South African fully because they fought for our freedom. They struggled for us. If they didn't, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be educated. We wouldn't be doing all the things we're doing today.
And South Africa is known as the Rainbow Nation. I'm proud to be part of that.
Whilst a lot has been achieved in the 20 years of freedom and democracy, there's still much to be done to overcome the impact of triple challenges of poverty, unemployment and inequality. Tsepo Ikaning, SABC News, Johannesburg.
So, a remarkable 20 years taking place there, and it's been a short 20 years for those of you that can remember voting in 1994. That package was just looking at the social transformation that's taken place over that period. Now, I believe that the proceedings are going to be starting shortly, and as I said, we have reporters out there, and we've got Yolisa Njamela, who's with us there. We'll be crossing there in a short while, but before that, joining me in studio is somebody who's been working with graduates over time, Tamsang Makubela. Thank you very much for joining us, and before the break we were talking about your view of the last 20 years, and I'm just wondering, you sent a tweet out in April where you said that we should be looking forward to the next 20 years, but on the basis of not the past. We're reviewing the past 20 years, rather, on the basis of what's to come. What did you mean by that?
Peter, we looking at the 20 years and we're looking at the next 20 years, the past is what it is. It's in the past. It's gone.
But people will tell you that we can't ignore the past.
We're not saying let's ignore it. You can never ignore it. That is why I have contributed to this immense amount of work to say from Gini coefficient to global competitiveness, a vast number of topics are in this encyclopedia. But what we're saying is that we've got to be futuristic. We've got a national development plan which says South Africa got to be able to create 5 million jobs. If we keep looking at our rear mirror, are we going to be able to apportion the same amount of effort and diligence to delivering what we need to deliver? South Africans need service delivery. South Africans need jobs. And we want to say to South Africans, yes, look for jobs, but create jobs. There is work in South Africa to be done. I took that challenge to say there is so much work to be done. There was not salary to pay me, but then I had to take the baton and to say it can be done. We have legends who've lived before us. When you look at what Tata Mandela, Tata Oliver Tambo, Tata Lutuli, they have contributed to this country. They were not being paid as freedom fighters. So do we expect the same?
We will have a
what
chance
we want to say is that let's be futuristic.
Okay.
What South Africa we want in 20 years from today?
Right. We're going to explore that a little bit further because I'm told that we are about to start proceedings. So let's go back to Yolisa and Jamela, who's there on the lawns of Union Buildings to take us through the next bit of this broadcast. Yolisa?
Just made way for... The brass band just made way for the official program. We're coming to you live from the Union Building lawns here in Pretoria. It's a beautiful day, of course. It's a glorious day, 20 years later to the day that freedom was proclaimed. Lest we forget that apartheid had to be dismantled in order for all South Africans to have these freedoms today that we're counting, and we feel, or rather believe, that we are quite fortunate, even though this country has a myriad of challenges, and thousands of South Africans converged from very early this morning here to celebrate this day, and a number of them are still streaming in colorful garbs. But the president and all the other officials and the opposition parties who will be making official speeches are already at the podium as the program starts officially.
We are colorful, a beautiful nation, South Africa, and as well with many African countries, vibrant, beautiful. We have amaXhosa, amaZulu, Botswana, Venda, Shangani. Welcome, our beautiful, diverse, colorful South African culture. How proud I am right now. We're celebrating 20 years of freedom, and there's no better way to show that off with the way how beautiful, how colorful we are through music and dance, and of course, we're very good, we're beautiful when it comes to the colors.
As you can see for yourselves, the colorful gabs, the young people of this country, celebration. This is a group from Botswana showing us what they have. Unity and diversity, of course, in this country as we reflect the past 20 years of freedom. All kinds of colors that you can see here being reflected. You remember that we've been here since 5 a.m. this morning with the interfaith ministers praying and reflecting on what has happened, and of course also paying tribute to the heroes who've lost their lives to make sure that we attain this program. As you sit back at home watching this transmission on SABC 2 and SABC channel 404, you can see that there are other countries that are visiting us to ensure that they are celebrating with us on this auspicious, glorious day in South Africa, 27th of April 2014.
I see Botswana. Can you wait for us, Botswana? Oh, beautiful feathers. I see black, pink, blue, fashionable, South African. I see you wave for us. Wave! AmaZulu, Bayende! Wave for us. You look, Madiba. We salute you. We'll forever love you. How you doing? And we have China, Chinese, Dragon Dance.
diversity as a whole number of cultural groups are streaming in to entertain South Africans. You can't beat this. If you're sitting at home, the mood here is electric. As much as you can see what's happening, I dare you to be here and ensure that you're part of these celebrations, because it's beautiful here. The electric mood, the garb, the color. What South Africans are known for, of course.
What a beautiful day. Ladies and gentlemen, a big warm round of applause for our beautiful young South African talent, Kupaliba Chapelle Matsoa, for putting such an amazing show for us. Please give them a warm, big round of applause.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Mommy, where does meat come from?
That's a good question, my darling. All our meat.
I don't know. What do you say after that? But with respect, I'm going to ask our technical brothers to help us out with removing the fence. But before they do that, I'm going to ask you guys, please, can we just give them 5 minutes to do what they need to do? Move the fence, and after that 5 minutes, we can all move and have a good time here. Rautloana bafethu. Rautloana batho ba batle ba South Africa. Ke kopa we repeat a happy. I'm going to ask our brothers to move our fence, but before they do that, can we please pay attention? Let's just wait for them to do what they need to do and make sure that we are all safe. Let's not push. Obviously, the space is big enough for all of us. Let's wait them for 5 minutes, and when they're done, the party is on. The party is on. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, just that 5 minutes. Let's give them the chance. Brothers, you can do what you need to do. Thank you.
Oh, we are back at the southern lawns of the Union Buildings. A moment, an air of excitement around here. With me, I've got a young couple who have come to be part of this historic event. Welcome. Tell us, how do you feel to be here celebrating 20 years of democratic rule?
Yeah, it is a very privileged moment for us. As a young couple, I mean, thinking about what happened in this country 20 years ago and looking at what is happening today, we are only privileged to be raising our children in an era that is full of opportunities and everything that you can ever think of.
I see you bringing all your kids here with the national flag. What do you want to really teach them about the importance of celebrating this day?
Okay, as young kids, they have no idea the struggle that we've been through as South Africa. So we want them to experience each and everything, and we explain to them what this day means to them. So this day is very profound, and we want our kids growing up knowing where we come from.
Okay, how are you?
Yeah, fine.
Tell me, how do you feel to be here? What are you enjoying most?
I'm enjoying to sing the songs and be happy.
Okay, what do you know about this country and Madiba?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know. Surely your mother will be able to teach you. So going forward, looking ahead, what do you want the future generation to really take forward in terms of the contribution that is made to bring us where we are today?
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that nothing has changed in South Africa, but that is actually not right, because when you look at what happened, myself particularly being born and bred in this city, I know of my parents not being able to walk the streets of this town, the city as a whole. But we are privileged today to be mixing and mingling with all races in all manners that we can. So we're looking forward to another 20 years that is full of opportunities, full of bright opportunities for our children. So yeah, that is actually exciting to be living in South Africa in this moment.
Thank you very much, guys. I hope we're also going to be enjoying the rest of the day with your kids. As you can see, the young and old gracing this event. On my left here, we've got the veterans, we've got the elderly who've been bussed from across the country to come and be part of this historic moment. And it's now back to the studio, Peter.
Making sure that everyone is safe. A bright is also stand by, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, His Excellency. Gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so Union Buildings, that's where it's all happening today, celebrating 20 years of freedom, and we'll be crossing periodically to our reporters there, Tsepo Ikaneng and Yolisa Njamela. But in studio, I have a couple of guests as well that are helping us reflect on the last 20 years. In one way or another, we've been talking to Mr. Makubela, but I'm now joined by Tembi Langa. And Tembi, you've got an interesting story in the sense that essentially you were born free, though, weren't you? Because you were born outside the country in exile and came to South Africa in 1991, just before Freedom Day, democracy, and so on and so forth. What I'm curious to know is when you came home, you were almost a foreign child with an emotional attachment to South Africa. Take us back to that time of coming home, because it was different for your parents. They knew exactly what they were coming to.
Definitely.
But for you?
I think it was different, like you said, for my parents, because they've been to South Africa before, you know, and for me, being born outside of the country and all of a sudden coming back home, it was a little bit interesting because I knew a lot about South Africa. You know, the community that we lived in Mazimbu, Tanzania at that time, taught us a lot about South Africa. So emotionally, I was really connected. Language-wise, we could speak Zulu. So because we spoke Zulu and my name is Tembi, I could connect to the country. But there were little things like, you know, because where we were in Tanzania, it was more of a revolutionary spirit. We would go home one day building. So when we came back home, we understood South Africa being a black and a white situation, you know, white people killing black people because of this. But when we came back home, we found out it's black against black. We have Inkatha Freedom Party coming along, and there was like unrest going on in 92, 93, you know, you have the killing of Chris Hani. So we became more politicized again, you know, to say, oh my God, we learned it to be the Afrikaners, for example, killing black people. Now it's black people killing black people. We can't even walk down the street like free, you know, this is South Africa that we've come back to. So that was shocking, you know, that was really shocking for me as a child because I've never, ever had experienced that, you know.
Then there was this whole journey of the exiles and the exiles that you had to explore as well at that time. How was that experience for you, and also trying to create this new identity for the whole of South Africa where you had people who had different experiences?
I don't know, this exile and exile thing. because where I grew up, I knew I was in exile, but it was so like I was in South Africa because everything was aimed at building South Africa. So we were like an experiment of how the new South Africa would look like, the young pioneers. So coming back home with this exile and exile, we definitely misunderstood because number one, they thought, oh, you guys had it good in exile. You guys never, experienced these things. And well, but at the same time, I don't feel like people experienced all of it good out there. They were working, and then there were people also over there who had experienced trauma. They were traumatized coming out of June 16, running away, basically. So they were not going out there on a vacation. You know what I'm saying? They were going out there to become freedom fighters. You know, they were joining the struggle. So coming back home and people thinking we had it all good out there was definitely a misconception because people never went out and asked people from exile, how was your experience like? What did you experience? You know, people came back home, had no family. That people don't ask about that. People had to look for their families because they haven't been here for like 20-something years, 30 years, 15 years. That's a long time. But people were never asked. So there was always this misunderstanding between South Africans who were in exile and those who were at home in terms of how much we've put in the struggle and who's suffered the most, or, you know what I'm saying? So to me, it's like we've all contributed to the struggle.
Right.
And
So
we
in fact, I want to chat a little bit after. We're going to cross the Union buildings now, but we're going to chat a little bit more about that and also the expectations that you had and compare them to Tamsankla about how you both viewed the future in 1994, given your different experiences. But let's go to Union buildings now, and I think Tsepo Ikaneng is standing by to take us through some of the things that are happening now. Tsepo?
President Jacob Zuma and Mrs. Zuma. Greetings to President Pohamba, President of the Republic of Namibia. Greetings to Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Kgalema Motlanthe. Greetings to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Max Sisulu. Greetings to
document this 20 years of freedom. I'm having two ladies here from France who are part of these proceedings. How do you feel about being here with us celebrating 20 years?
We feel very lucky to be here for such an important anniversary. Like 20 years, it's a big number, and we feel very lucky and special to be here. Actually, we live really close to here, and we've been hearing the preparations since a few days, so now we're really excited to actually see what's going to happen. And
You're feeling yourself to be part of South Africans. Do you think you are feeling that warmth of the people and the ambience that is here?
Yes, I feel really proud and at the same time emotional to see that there is so many people to celebrate this day today here, and there's such a good atmosphere, and it feels really nice to be here.
Thank you very much, ladies. We are going to be proceeding with the normal processes here. I'm going to be heading over to the podium where Paul Mashatile, the Minister of Arts and Culture, is addressing the people and the dignitaries.
To this event, Honorable Premier.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Minister Paul Mashatile, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Namibia, Mr. Pohamba, the Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Kgalema Motlanthe, Minister Collins Chabane, all other ministers present, deputy ministers present, the executive mayor of the city of Tshwane, the representatives of various political parties, Mr. Themba Godi from the APC, Mr. Makashule Ghana, the Deputy Federal Chairperson of the Democratic Alliance, Mr. Van der Merwe from the IFP, Mr. Bennett Joko from the Pan-African Congress of Azania, Mr. Nkwankwa from the UDM, the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Max Sisulu, the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Mahlangu, fellow South Africans, a very good morning. We gathered here today to celebrate and to remember that together we have traveled a long journey that has brought us to Tshwane this morning to come and celebrate 20 years of democracy. As the host province of these historic celebrations of our freedom and democracy, we warmly welcome you to the province of Gauteng, including those that are coming from various provinces. I am aware that we've got people coming from Mpumalanga, the Free State, Northwest, as well as Limpopo, present here today, and my own colleagues, premiers from various provinces who are present here today. Let me also acknowledge Mrs. Zuma, who is with us here on the podium. Today will be quite an exciting and memorable day for all of us, but one of the things that we want to share is that as we celebrate the successes of our democracy, we also have to be fully aware of the challenges that lay ahead as we move South Africa forward. We continue to be quite aware that our freedom and democracy will not be worth it if we fail to improve the material circumstances of the majority of our people in South Africa. The measure of a true democracy and genuine freedom, after all, lies in the improvement of the quality of life of all South Africans. It is a living tribute to the wishes and hopes of our people who gathered in Kliptown in 1955 when they declared that the country belongs to all those who live in it. On behalf of our government and people, I'm also honored to welcome you, many among you and many of the communities and organizations you represent were participants in the global struggle for the defeat of the apartheid system. You supported the declaration of the system as a crime against humanity. We therefore welcome everybody from Africa and the entire world who are with us, represented by members of the diplomatic corps. As we remember that the world united in support of democracy, non-racism, non-sexism, human dignity for all, and the prosperity of all who live in South Africa, we need to take cognizance that it is not yet uhuru, not only in South Africa, but we must all strive for unity in the entire world. And once more, welcome to this important and historic moment, and let us work together to move South Africa forward. And remember that 21 years ago, there was no Danville just 6 kilometers away from here, where black and white people are now neighbors, out of a community program that has been developed by this government, where Efande Merve and Mzimkulu are neighbors, because South Africa belongs to all those who live in it. Today we can celebrate that transport in South Africa is integrated such that those that live in Soweto, in Soshanguve, can use the bus rapid transport system in a manner that demonstrates that through transport infrastructure, we can de-racialize our community. We need to celebrate that many of those who are doing well in the education system are coming from no-fee schools in our own townships, in the ghettos of South Africa. We also need to celebrate that just 21 years ago, for us to have gathered here, we should have applied for a permission to be here. Otherwise, this would have been an illegal gathering for the majority of us who are here. South Africa will never be the same again. May God bless South Africa, bless its leaders, bless its people, and may Africa prosper. Thank you, Nyabong.
Re a leboga Mmemkonyane le amogetswe ka moka dimpša di bofilwe le ka ipsina. You can enjoy yourselves now, those from near and afar. Ladies and gentlemen, it is normally a tradition that on a day like this we allow political parties to convey brief messages of support. However, we have requested that we use this opportunity to get a message of support from our friends from the continent and abroad, and we have agreed that we will give that opportunity to His Excellency President Pohamba, President of the Republic of Namibia, to convey a message of support to the people of South Africa. However, the political parties are here with us, and we will be enjoying this day together with them. It is therefore my pleasure to now invite President Pohamba to the podium to come and convey a message of support on this important day to the people of South Africa. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies, for giving me the floor. Your Excellency, Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Premier of the Gauteng Province, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Chief Justice, and members of the Judiciary, Honorable Members of Parliament, Executive Mayor of the City of Tshwane, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, dear brothers and sisters, citizens of the Republic of South Africa, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I am most honored to deliver the message of solidarity in my capacity as chairperson of SADC organ on politics, defense, and security cooperation to the government and the people of South Africa on this special occasion of the celebration of the 20th anniversary of freedom and democracy. The momentum events of 27th of April 1994, when the people of South Africa participated in the epoch-making, non-racial and democratic elections, marked the triumph of the human spirit and the resistance over the oppressive and inhuman system of apartheid, which belittled the beautiful country for more than 300 years. After the arrival of colonial settlers in Cape of Good Hope in 1652, the majority of the people of South Africa were dehumanized, robbed of their dignity, and denied basic human rights under the successive oppressive regimes. This was escalated in 1948 with the institutionalization of apartheid as a government policy. In order to free themselves from apartheid tyranny and regain their dignity, the people of South Africa embarked upon the long walk to freedom under the leadership of the national liberation movement. Thousands of men and women put their lives on the line. They were tortured, imprisoned, and subjected to inhuman treatment in their long heroic struggle for democracy and justice for all. The struggle against apartheid oppression and colonialism was a common struggle. Our people shared the common trenches on the battlefield. Today, we warmly congratulate the government and the fraternal people of South Africa for their hard-won freedom and democracy. We are happy to note that the culture of democratic governance has grown deep roots in South Africa. In a few days, the people of South Africa will be going to the polls for the national and the provisional elections. We have no doubt that this process will be conducted in a free, fair, and transparent manner as the people of South Africa choose their leaders. We wish you well. On this day, we commend the government and the people of South Africa for having maintained peace at home through a dynamic multi-party democratic system of governance and sustained economic growth, which has led to the improvement of the living conditions of millions of South Africans through the delivery of public services and the creation of job opportunities for many people, especially those who were victims of apartheid. Last year, we joined the government and the people of South Africa, and indeed the international community at large, to pay tribute and bid farewell to Nelson Mandela, the first president of democratic South Africa. He was an illustrious son of Africa and an icon of the liberation struggle. Indeed, he epitomized the total commitment to democratic governance, freedom, and justice in South Africa, our region, our continent, and indeed for all humanity. We recognize the leading role that this great country continues to play in regional, continental, and international fora. Through SADC, SACU, the AU, G20, BRICS, and the United Nations, South Africa is making immense contribution towards international peace and security, sustainable economic and social development, and the creation of a fairer global trade system. The peaceful transformation from apartheid rule to a non-racial democratic dispensation 20 years ago stands out as an enduring inspiration to the people of our region, our continent, and the world at large to strive for and respect human dignity. On this occasion, SADC joins hands with the people of South Africa in defense of the gains of freedom and democracy here in South Africa and the broader SADC region. We stand together with you in common efforts towards lasting peace, security on our continent, underpinned by sustainable development and social justice for all our people. I thank you.
A big round of applause for His Excellency President Pohamba for that message of solidarity. Tembi, I'm going to allow you to call Kutuano Masote cultural dance. If you can please spare me 5 minutes that side, running out of time. Okay.
I want to thank our government for giving me 2 minutes to speak to the nation. I feel like I'm the president of the country for only 2 minutes. Socioeconomic, brought in a down, but the growth is considered Africa. It brought us results, and it inspired growth of South Africa. I sometimes feel sorry for my homeland. I can tell we come from 2 different worlds. The understated without misconfidence in construction. 2 processes of sooner or later, afterwards I thought to myself, what difference does it make? Science does not know whether you're exactly or fine. I like what you see on TV, and sometimes I have a laugh when my mother asks me, that's a yellow? And then I say, but oh, you cannot interpret the joke. Then we both laugh about it. You know, when I read books, watch TV, and listen to my dear preachers at church, I ask myself, but why did students fight against such a background of love? You know, when you listen to Afrikaans being spoken by Afrikaans-speaking people, you're not the small lack of love. Hello, my uncle directed this play. Yeah, hello, India now playing. Hello, Bastian gebreken Afrikaans is een lang interactie. Hoezo? Waar is het probleem dan? Heel lang en mevrouw. Kan jij misschien een Afrikaans leren? Ik zeg, je was zoet, maar ja, niet. Kinderen is zoet. and anyone is better than another answer. To my government and our leaders, I want to say thank you for respecting me as an Afrikaans-speaking child and respecting my language. I'm happy to celebrate 20 years of freedom and democracy as myself and everyone else as themselves. Happy Freedom Day 2014. Thank you. Ni chale ye 1998 in a place called Soweto. Yimi na mwana wa kansile. I am free and I know. Ni vanila TV, ni shaile tibuku na timegezini. Futi ni duela switori. Iti koleri kuri akuri njani. Unge septika lembera 1994. Ikwaso iswitori eka mina. Mina tinangateko imaka kuri. Anzifambaga endeleni ya matwari ba mina. Zimuchwa hambiloko mina nza switiva kuri nzitirela ishaka na buchucheko bya munhu ikwawo wale Afrika burwa nyatsongo.
Hi, I see all these parties working towards 7 May. And my grandmother tells me that they never had an opportunity to vote until 1994. They did not see what we see on TV and at the stadiums. And I ask myself, how can a person live in a country where they do not have the right to choose the system and leaders that represent their dreams? I am too young to vote. One thing I know is that one day, even if I vote for my parents to have a better old age, I will let my voice be heard. As for today, when we celebrate 20 years of freedom and democracy, I, Khotso Leo, want to thank my parents and all the parents from this country. Happy Freedom Day, everybody.
My name is Rutabile Sikalo. Ngithanda ukubilisa abantu abadala, iintanga zami, nabaholi bethu ngalelanga elibaluleke kangaka la eMzantsi Afrika. To be born free in South Africa, kube into enhle kakhulu. I have witnessed 3 World Cups in my country. I am happy to be able to mix with children from all backgrounds and cultures. As a girl child, my community and society support me as a growing musical child. Ngiyazi ukuthi this was not always possible for previous generations of a girl children. Futhi-ke, I am happy to be able to associate with any person that I choose to. Ngaphandle komthetho ongivimbezela ekwenzeni lokho. Thanks to the hardworking men and women abasilethela inkululeko yethu. Ngingama la namhlanje and be a living example of possibilities that our freedoms have brought. Ngingasho ukuthi inkululeko ifike nokukhululeka komqondo nokuvuleka kweminyango evalekile. Ask me why. Ongenamali can stand up on their own feet and be entrepreneurs. The young and the old have every right and opportunity and to go to school and be what they wish to be. I just love my freedom, don't you? Happy Freedom Day, everybody.
Batsadi le baetapele ba rona. Leina la ka ke Boitumelo, ke Motswana o ipelang. Gape ke na le lekwalo la boikitsiso. Pele ga tikologo re ne re gateletswe. Gompieno go na le diphetogo mo Afrika Borwa. Gare ga tsona ke tla buisa tse di latelang. Nka kgona go aga ka gonne ke moago le go logileng ka bophara. Nka bona thuto e sa duelweng, nka tsena sekolo seo ke se ratang, nka nna le ditsala tsa merafe yotlhe, nka kena lenyalong le morafe ofe kgotsa ofe. Nako ya go tsamaya o tshwere dompas e fetile. Morago jaana o ka dirisa karata ya boikitsiso ba re ke smart card. Gompieno ge o le motho wa mme o ka bona tiro, o ka kgona go nna le kgwebo e nngwe le e nngwe. Ga gona kgatelelo ya gore o tshwanetse gore o nne monna wa rra. Go a itumedisa gore re ka kgona go tlhopha lekoko le le ka busang. Re na le freedom of speech, re ka bua se re se ratang le se re sa se rateng. batho ba dikobo di magetleng ba agelwa dintlo tse di sa duelweng gompieno jaaka re keteka dingwaga tse 20 a tokologo le go lekana. I celebrate the right to travel the world and enjoy the protection of my country. Ke ipela ka Afrika Borwa. I am a proud South African. Ke a leboga.
A big round of applause for Kutlwano. These are children born in the years of democracy. Thank you for your messages. Ladies and gentlemen, let me assure you that we have a good lineup of entertainment for you today, so don't worry. There's a lot more coming. You're going to dance and jive and enjoy yourself. But it's important that we get the formalities out of the way first. Allow the President to convey the message to the nation. So I would like now to take this opportunity to invite President of the Republic of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, to convey a message to yourselves here, but to the entire nation and the world. Before he does so, I know there is a praise singer that is coming. Poor praise singer. Okay, asimboni praise singer, so I Okay, ladies and gentlemen, President Jacob Zuma.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. His Excellency President Hifikepunye Pohamba, President of the Republic of Namibia and Chair of the SADC organ on politics, defense, and security. Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, Premier of Gauteng, the Minister of Arts and Culture, the Minister in the Presidency, and other ministers present, the Speaker of the National Assembly, and the Chairperson of the NCOP, members of Parliament and the provincial legislatures, the executive mayor of the city of Tshwane and other mayors here present, leaders of political parties, traditional leaders, religious leaders, leaders of civil society formations, members of the diplomatic corps, our honored guests, fellow South Africans, Sanbonani, Molweni, Dumelang, good day, Khwedag, Nemashoroni, Abshe, Ivukile Ngovu. Hey. Director of the program, let me begin by extending a warm welcome to our guest of honor, His Excellency President Mahamba. We are truly honored that you took time off your very busy schedule to celebrate this historic day with us today, Your Excellency. Compatriots, today marks exactly 20 years since the dawn of freedom and democracy in our country. The first and historic democratic elections that were held on the 27th April 1994 decisively marked the end of over 300 years of colonial and white minority rule. South Africans came out in their millions, forming long queues in villages, townships, and suburbs to cast their votes for the first time. After casting his vote for the first time at the age of 75, former President Nelson Mandela proclaimed simple but very profound words at the grave of the founding president of the African National Congress, Dr. John Langalibalele Dube, in Inanda, Durban. He said, and I quote, "Mr. President, I've come to report to you that South Africa is free today," unquote. Indeed, we were free at last. We gained equal citizenship in the land of our birth. Soon thereafter, a new constitution came into being after hard work by South Africans represented by various parties. We gained the rights to life, equality, freedom of movement, freedom of speech, and freedom of association, freedom of worker rights, children's rights, and women's rights. Our people gained socioeconomic rights, such as the right to water, electricity, housing, health, education, social security, and others. Most importantly, 1994 ushered in a new era of hope for all South Africans, a hope that the lives of the people would improve and that South Africa would be a better country than it had ever been. And indeed, that has happened. South Africa is a much better place to live in today. In 1994, under the leadership of President Mandela, we had set out to achieve the following goals: the building of a united, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist society, the deepening of our democracy, and promotion of the culture of human rights and people's participation in changing their lives for the better. Meeting basic needs and developing human resources. Building the economy and creating jobs. Combating crime and corruption. Transforming the state. And building a better Africa and a better world. We have done well on all these pillars in the past 20 years. We have moved closer to our cherished dream of a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous South Africa. As we celebrate these achievements, we remember those in our country who sacrificed for this freedom. We are indeed indebted to the generations of Pixley, Kaizaga Seme, Oliver Reginald Tambo, Nelson Mandela, Lillian Ngoyi, Walter Sisulu, Dorothy Nyembe, Ruth First, Govan Mbeki, Yusuf Dadoo, Peter Mukaba, and a host of other leaders who sacrificed life's comforts for liberation and democracy. We pay homage to those who perished in massacres and his squad attacks perpetrated by the apartheid regime in Sharpeville, Langa, KwaNobuhle, Pietermaritzburg, Boipatong, Transfeed, Shoban, KwaMashu, Thokoza, Katlehong, Vosloorus, or beyond our borders in Lesotho, Botswana, and in other countries. We pay tribute to those who were brutally executed by the apartheid regime here in Pretoria, from Vuyisi Lemeni to Solomon Mahlangu. We remember the political prisoners who served time on Robben Island and many other prisons, and those who were detained and persecuted for their beliefs in freedom, justice, equality, and human dignity. All these painful incidents remind us that our freedom was not free. It came about through blood, sweat, and tears. That is why we must defend it at all costs. Compatriots, this freedom would not have come about if the masses of our people did not make apartheid unworkable every single day. We pay tribute to the South African masses who organized themselves into various formations defying the might of the apartheid state. We recall the fighting spirit of the more than 600 organizations that were part of the United Democratic Front during the 1980s, the last decade before freedom. The UDF emphasized the unique non-racial nature of our struggle. We recall organizations such as the End Conscription Campaign, which fought against the recruitment of white youth into the apartheid South African Defence Force. They were determined that white youth should not be used to terrorize their black compatriots. We remember the Black Sash, detainees, parents, support groups, and many other progressive groups that helped to ease the pain inflicted by the apartheid state by supporting affected families. We acknowledge the struggles waged by cultural, sporting, academic, and other formations. Memorable slogans such as that there can be no normal sport in an abnormal society remind us of the determination of our people to take the struggle to every arena. We acknowledge the religious fraternity which maintained as a vocal and a voice against racial discrimination and oppression. Through the South African Council of Churches and the World Council of Churches, Diaconia, and other formations, our belief that human rights and dignity are sacrosanct was reinforced. We recognize the sterling contribution of the legal fraternity through Legal Resources Center, National Association of Democratic Lawyers, Lawyers for Human Rights, and other formations. We acknowledge the contribution of progressive journalists who defied repressive censorship laws and police harassment as they exposed the atrocities and racism perpetrated by the apartheid state. On this day, we remember all these who participated in the struggle. Our liberation was a liberation of all of us. Compatriots, we salute the workers for their sterling contribution in the struggle for liberation. The unification of the democratic trade union movement under the banner of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, was one of the most significant developments in our history. COSATU became a powerful and unstoppable force for change inside the country alongside the UDF and other formations. Today, we celebrate the hard-won rights of workers, including workplace organizing, collective bargaining, equal pay for equal work, health and safety, skills development, minimum wages for workers in vulnerable sectors, the right to strike, and the right to peaceful protest. More still needs to be done to promote the rights of vulnerable workers. Together as government, organized labor and business, we find solutions to problems. Compatriots, let us celebrate the role of women who since 1913 have been at the forefront of the liberation struggle. Many women added life to the Defiance campaign in the 1950s, including through their historic anti-pass march to these very union buildings in 1956. Many women ended up in prisons or in exile. Today, we celebrate the institutional mechanisms that have been established to protect women's rights and dignity. Progress in meeting basic needs such as housing and access to water has especially benefited women, addressing past inequalities. We are celebrating the fact that more girls are in school and tertiary education than ever before, meaning that we are making progress in breaking the cycle of marginalization of women. Women continue to benefit from economic empowerment programs. They are also the major beneficiaries of the Social Security program, one of the key poverty alleviation mechanisms in our country. More women are in senior positions in parliament, cabinet, provincial legislatures, as well as in provincial and local government structures. All of this is not surprising, for women fought for freedom. Malibongwe igama lamakhosikazi ngoba ayilwela kanzima ilenkululeko. Compatriots, today we also celebrate the contribution of the youth in the struggle for liberation in our country. Generations of South African youth worked tirelessly to dismantle apartheid colonialism. Inspired by the commitment of our youth to building a prosperous future, we have committed ourselves to invest in education and the empowerment of our young people and to improve their lives. President Mandela introduced free health care for pregnant women as part of ensuring that South African children are born healthy as one of the benefits of freedom. We are carrying on his legacy by continuing to invest in children, and we now begin investing in their education from birth. Government spends 1.3 billion rand on early childhood development centers, subsidizing these centers, which are commonly known as creches, and also subsidizing fees of children from poor households. Government pays 15 rand per day per child from poor households to prepare them for primary education and for the rest of their schooling years. We are determined that children will not be disadvantaged by poverty from accessing education. To further promote universal access to education, 8 million children do not pay school fees. In addition, 9 million children receive meals at school so that hunger does not impair their performance. More than 11 million orphans and vulnerable children benefit from social grants to ensure that poverty in their homes does not disadvantage them and destroy their future. In fact, our plan is that by 2013, South Africa should have a comprehensive system of social protection that includes social security grants, mandatory retirement savings, risk benefits such as unemployment, death, and disability benefits, and vulnerable retirement savings. We are happy with progress at primary and secondary school levels. Systematic improvements have led to an improvement of the matric pass rate from 61% in 2009 to 78% in 2013. Our investment in higher education has expanded enrollments phenomenally. Since 2009, we have spent more than 115 billion rand on higher education and training, including more than 18.6 billion rand on the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS. We have also revitalized the National Youth Development Agency. It now focuses on both education and empowerment the youth for economic participation. The signing of the Youth Employment Accord by government, business, labor, and youth formations last year was a practical demonstration that this country takes youth development and the future of this country seriously. Compatriots, I'm sure you all agree with me that working together in the past 20 years and the past 5 years, we have made South Africa a much better place to live in. We should congratulate ourselves for all this hard work. We must not deny or downplay these achievements, regardless of our political differences or contestation at any given time, including the election period. Facts should remain facts. Our country has done well. We all have a good story to tell. We have built a democratic state founded on the values of human dignity, non-racialism, non-sexism, the rule of law, and universal adult suffrage as enshrined in the Constitution. We have built strong institutions that continue to support our constitutional democracy. Without fail, every 5 years, we continue to have regular elections, thus bringing to life the Freedom Charter declaration that no government can justly claim authority unless it was based on the will of all the people. We have, as a country, done much for ourselves. We are succeeding to heal the wounds of our brutal and divided past. we are gradually making progress in building a common national identity built on respect for one another and the love of our country. Step by step, we are building the South Africa that our selfless and committed freedom fighters fought for. We are making tremendous progress each year. As indicated in our 20-year review report, we have made considerable progress building a better life for all. Over the past 20 years, employment, both formal and informal, has grown by around 5.6 million people, which is far faster than it was the case previously. More work, however, still needs to be done to expand the capacity of our economy to absorb more people, especially the youth. Building on the foundation laid by Madiba, we have registered significant improvements in access to health care. More than 1,500 new health facilities, including clinics, have been built, while others have been refurbished. Most clinics are now open 24 hours a day, and people do not pay to receive health care. Our HIV and AIDS programs have yielded dramatic results. There is increased life expectancy, and thousands of children have been saved due to improved mother-to-child HIV transmission prevention program. Thousands more people are receiving treatment, and more than 20 million have boldly taken the HIV test following the launch of the testing campaign in 2011. We want to urge our people not to become complacent just because our treatment programs are effective and easily accessible now. We must still follow the prevention messages and ensure that there are 0 new HIV infections each day in our country. We have a good story to tell in expanding access to basic services as well. In 2012, 83% of households had access to proper sanitation compared to 50% in 1994. Access to water has increased from 60% in 1994 to over 95% in 2012. Around 86% of households now have access to electricity compared to 50% in 1994. As part of developing sustainable rural communities, we have distributed 9.4 million hectares of land, benefiting almost 250,000 people. Over the past 20 years, close to 3 million houses were built and over 800,000 service sites were delivered. 56% of all subsidies allocated have been given to women-headed households. We are continuing to build new non-racial settlements and to ensure that more South Africans live closer to economic and employment opportunities. South Africans have a good story to tell regarding the fight against crime as well, thanks to hard work by our police service, assisted by communities. Since 1994, the levels of serious crime and property crime have declined. But we are not complacent. Work continues to build even more safer communities. We are concerned that crime levels, particularly crimes against vulnerable groups such as women and children, remain of serious concern. This area will continue to receive our priority attention. More progress made is in the area of improving access to justice, especially for those who were previously marginalized. This has been done through the establishment of more police stations and courts, as well as through the increased provision of legal aid. Compatriots, I would like to congratulate the South African National Defence Force, which also celebrates 20 years of existence. The SANDF has been transformed from a force that used to terrorize our people in the townships and beyond our borders, in the then frontline states, to a force for peace, stability, and development. We have seen our soldiers saving our people in disaster areas. We have seen them undertaking peacekeeping duties with dedication and commitment in the continent. We saw them working hard to give our beloved Madiba a dignified send-off in December last year. Indeed, we are very proud of our Defence Force. The progress made by the SANDF indicates that we are succeeding not only in building a nation at peace with itself, but also a nation at peace with the rest of the world. Indeed, our country continues to contribute to building a better Africa and a better world, building on Madiba's legacy. Later today, we will be conferring national orders, our country's highest honors, to South Africans and foreign nationals who have made a difference in various aspects of our lives. We take this opportunity to thank the international community for solidarity during our struggle for national liberation. Most importantly, we thank SADC and Africa in general for the solidarity provided during our hour of need. His Excellency President Mahamba represents a region that suffered immensely for our freedom. He also represents a country, Namibia, with which we shared the trenches fighting for our freedom against the same enemy. The ruling liberation movements in the two countries, SWAPO and the ANC, share a strong bond which has translated to stronger relations between the two countries. Compatriots, we have done a lot in 20 years, but we still have some way to go to eradicate poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Fortunately, we have a plan. One of the key achievements of the past 5 years has been the development of the National Development Plan, which has been endorsed by all political parties in Parliament. The plan aims to eradicate poverty, create jobs, and reduce inequality by 2013. The next decade of freedom must be one in which we work together to advance economic transformation. We will continue to work with the business sector to advance broad-based black economic empowerment and affirmative action in order to change the ownership, control, and management of the economy. Already, broad-based Black Empowerment Act and the Employment Equity Acts have been amended to improve implementation and impact and advance economic transformation. We will also, working together, continue to focus on making improvements in 5 priorities: job creation, health, education, rural development and land reforms, as well as the fight against crime and corruption. We will also continue to expand access to housing and basic services. There is a lot of work to be done, but we will succeed if we work together. Compatriots, the precious right to vote was gained through relentless struggles and sacrifices. Therefore, as citizens of this country, on the 7th of May, let us go out in our millions to vote and celebrate our hard-won freedom and democracy. Let us vote to consolidate democracy and all the achievements of our young nation. And as we did in 1994 and in subsequent elections, let us deliver peaceful, free, and fair elections. Bakwethu, siyajabula kakhulu namhlanje ngoba iningizimu Afrika esiphila kuyo isingcono kakhulu kunaleyo yangesikhathi sobandlululo. Ukutholakala kwamalungelo abantu, ilungelo lokuvota, izindlu, ugesi, amanzi, nokunye okuningi kuyakhombisa ukuthi inkululeko ize nentuthuko nenqubekela phambili kithina sonke. Kufanele singakhohlwa ukuthi lenkululeko sayizabalazela yatholakala ngegazi nangezinyembezi, yatholakala ngezithukuthuku zabantu balelizwe. Kufanele siyivikele futhi senze isiqinisekiso sokuthi akukho okungasiphuca yona. Yingakho nje ivoti lethu libalulekile kangaka ilona eliyisikhali esivikela ngaso inkululeko yethu ilona ivoti futhi esisheshisa ngalo intuthuko nenguquko ezweni lakithi mhla ka7 kuMay akuphume nesinedolo siyovotela intuthuko nenqubekela phambili bakwethu muzi wase South Africa wonke sinifisela usuku lwenkululeko oluhle olunempumelelo kanye nobumnandi nolugcwele injabulo kithina sonke. Happy 20th birthday to a free South Africa. Happy Freedom Day to all. God bless Africa. God bless South Africa. Thank you. Siyabonga.
A big round of applause for President Zuma. Thank you very much, President. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll give you a chance to sing later. We just want to finalize some formalities.
So that's the speech there being delivered by His Excellency the President of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, on Freedom Day, and sharing his thoughts about the last 20 years of democracy in South Africa. And he began by asking people to remember and pay tribute to the many people, the leaders and heroes that gave their lives for democracy during the struggle. He says that freedom was not free, and therefore it needed to be defended at all costs. He reminded us of the various people and various groupings that contributed to bringing this democracy, celebrating, amongst others, the roles that people like the trade unions played in bringing democracy, and also women too, and how important their contribution was, and that it should not be forgotten. He talked about the last 20 years, and he said it is indeed a good story to tell, as he went through the achievements in the various areas of our country. And he says, yes, we've done a lot, but still much has to be done if we have to eradicate poverty, inequality and unemployment. And he said that all this could only be done if we work together to advance the economic plight and further economic empowerment. He talked about the plans for the future. We have a blueprint, a map, the National Development Plan, which can be used for everybody because it's all been endorsed. But let's work the plan now. And more importantly, next week and a bit, the elections are on the horizon, and he says we must vote. We must exercise our vote and protect our democracy at all costs. Okay, so in studio we have some guests that are joining us who've been watching the speech and sharing their thoughts with us. Thamsanqa Maqubela and Tembilanga, thank you very much again for joining us on this very important day. And I just wonder, we've heard the speech from the President, good story to tell, last 20 years, and he's reflecting on the future. And I'm just wondering, on Freedom Day, how do you feel? You know, we're celebrating it more today because it's 20 years on, but each year, how have you reflected and what has it meant for you this day in particular? Let's start with you, Tembi.
This day has meant a lot to me, you know, and every day, not just today, every day I reflect on that freedom that I have. I'm able to do things today that probably 20 years, 21 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do. So most definitely, I'll say this freedom, I'm celebrating it, and it has worked for me.
Tammy?
It is indeed a very good day that we're celebrating. It is good. I think South Africa, it is a better place, but it's not enough because thousands of graduates still unemployed. A lot of other people are still waiting on the government to receive this and that. The plans that we have, the blueprint that the president spoke about, really needs to be something that can help South Africa to become a greater place. That would ensure that we remove and reduce the poverty, the inequality. And basically, these are all a result of unemployment. We have a huge backlog in terms of employment. These plans, they need to help us build and ensure that people are able to earn a living and be able to take care of their lives. And I think that's what this democracy owes to a lot of South Africans. O.R. Tambo, who died just at the eve of this democracy, Chris Hani, who died at the eve of this democracy because of his death, the bullet that went through to his life, that ended his life, would not be as painful when we can live and walk around South Africa, the streets of Ngamakwe, and drive in Ngamakwe on a third road than you do today. That is a good story, but we want a greater story to heal the wounds of the past. South Africa is wounded, and to heal those wounds, we need a greater story.
Okay, well, we'll unpack that a little bit more because we'd like to go now to Union Buildings and join Tsepo Ganeng, who's there, who's been watching, and perhaps he can give us a little bit of a sense of how people have reacted to the President's speech. Tsepo, a very good morning to you.
An organic, intellectual, and prolific thinker, Amilcar Cabral, he has the following to say. He says, claim no easy victories. For indeed, President
talked about the role that the international community played in terms of making sure that this government attains its democracy in first general elections. With me, I've got two guys and a lady from New York, the Big Apple. As you are well aware that the fight, the campaign to have the international sanctioned employed against the apartheid regime was fought there at the UN. So having these two gentlemen and a lady, can you tell us how do you feel to be part of this audience today?
I gotta say, it's pretty cool to see everybody out here. I mean, the past 20 years has seen so much growth in South Africa. We're happy to be being here this one semester that happens to be the 20th anniversary. It's a fascinating time to be in South Africa.
They are here to study at the University of Pretoria, which is very much inspirational to me as a South African to see that at least you are able to attract people to come and study here in our country. Tell us about your decision to come to study here in Pretoria.
Well, I think pretty much all of us chose to come to Pretoria because we wanted to learn more about South African culture, but the fact that it is the 20th anniversary of the first democratic elections definitely inspired me to come to learn more about how South Africa has been doing democratically.
So since you're part of the 20 years of celebration of our freedom, what is your well wishes to this nation going forward?
I'm looking forward to seeing this country continue to move forward and gain some freedom, fighting poverty and equality for everyone, and finding unity and diversity. I think it's really beautiful being here and experiencing that with all of you.
We are also proud indeed to have you as part of our international guest. And from me, it's all happening. After this, there are going to be national orders conferred by President Jacob Zuma just a stone throw away at the Sefako Makhato presidential guest house. So from now, it's bye-bye from me, and I'm going to link up you with Yolis and Jamela on the other side.
Sepa, we're coming to you live from the tent where the eminent persons are. Of course, the president did say that this freedom was not free. It was laced with blood and sweat. A number of South Africans are streaming in now. You remember that there are artists and performances that are coming out right after this official program. But let's see, since we are in the tent with eminent persons, let's see who we can perhaps ambush and talk to and find out why they're here or why this is important to them. In fact, fact, we have the Minister of Home Affairs, Naledi Pandor, who can perhaps tell us, except for the freedom that we all know that we're celebrating today, Naledi Pandor, what is the one thing that you believe that South Africans of all colors and creed should never take for granted?
Well, firstly, creating a framework that enshrines the rule of law is very important, and having checks and balances in our society. Before, Parliament could do what it liked and, decide there'll be a 90-day detention without any right to legal representation. They could decide that you'll be under house arrest. You had no recourse to law. It was like an edict. We now have checks and balances. Our people can go to the Constitutional Court. They can approach institutions such as the Human Rights Commission, and their rights will be honored. It is our obligation to do so. So I think bringing the removal of arbitrariness in law has been an absolutely important gain of freedom.
Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing us to ambush you. Let's see who else we can ambush quickly without tripping myself with the cables. All around here, the eminent persons, the ministers, the deputy ministers, traditional leaders, and of course, Mabono Siviwe Mapisa Ngakula was the defense minister. Mabono Siviwe, thank you for allowing us to ambush you. What is the one thing, as a defense minister in particular, this is an auspicious moment for you, but what is the one thing that you think South Africans should never take for granted, except for the freedom?
Well, we should never take our freedom for granted. The fact that we have a right to vote today, the fact that we have a freedom of expression, freedom of association, those to me are the most fundamental and critical elements of what we were fighting for. I think that South Africa has done very well, and I think that for 20 years, if you're talking about 20 years, really, it's a very short period within which we have dealt with some of the backlog of about 300 years of deprivation by the majority of South Africans.
Thank you for being a good sport, Mabono Siviwe Mapisa Ngakula. We're taking it back to you, Peter, in the studio as we wrap up here from the Union Buildings.
Yolisa and Jamila, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us and speaking to the various guests that were there watching the President's speech here on Freedom Day. And Tsepo Ikaneng was there as well, so thanks to our reporters who've been covering that story from Union Buildings. Now, the transition from apartheid to democracy has been described as a miracle, but how exactly did this miracle come about? Well, let's take a look at this package our reporter Tumisho Mashaba wrote.
South Africa's transition from apartheid to democracy remains one of the most impressive political transitions of our time. It's a miracle story that almost didn't happen. The country's lack of multi-party electoral experience and the violent and persistent clashes between the ANC and the IFP are just some of the factors that stood to derail the process.
If they try to sideline us, South Africa will be a catastrophe. We are going to destroy. No one will go to the polls on the 27th.
But one thing was clear from the outset. Come what may, free, fair and inclusive elections were to go ahead. But who was going to run these elections? Given the country's history of oppression, a new body or agency with no links to the existing government and broadly representative of South African society had to be formed. So it was that the Independent Electoral Commission, or IEC, first came into being.
It was a political imperative that the elections take place. The date, the 27th of April, had assumed magical proportions. That would be the day, come hell or high water, the elections would take place as determined on that date.
But the country was on a knife edge. Members of the far right-wing AWB were going around the country destabilizing political gatherings and propagating white supremacist ideas. Violent clashes between the ANC and the IFP were becoming more commonplace as they tried to campaign in each other's strongholds. The violence was further fueled by the Third Force, a secret operative within the South African Security Force, which provided arms and military training to some sectors of the IFP. Over 3,700 people were killed in the political violence of 1993. Throwing a spanner to the works was the multi-party negotiations, a forum between the governing National Party, the African National Congress, and other political parties. During the talks, the main negotiating parties, the ANC and the NP, had reached an agreement on a number of issues before taking them to the other parties in the forum. This put considerable pressure on the other parties to either agree with the consensus or to be left out of the process. In protest, the leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, pulled out of the talks and threatened to boycott the elections. Unless, however, King Goodwill Zwelithini was guaranteed special status of the Zulu monarchy and the party granted complete autonomy over the internal politics of KwaZulu. And with the IFP out, the negotiations continued under a cloud of political uncertainty. Then on the 10th of April 1993, the unthinkable would happen. Chris Hani, leader of the South African Communist Party and a senior leader of the ANC, was assassinated outside of his home in Donpark by a Polish far-right-wing immigrant, Janusz Walus. Emotions ran high as fears of a violent backlash swelled throughout the country. But in a message regarded as presidential even before he was president, Nelson Mandela went on national television and called for calm. The call helped to tip the scales in favor of the ANC in the negotiations. Then on the 25th of June 1993, in a bid to derail the talks, members of the AWB dramatically stormed the World Trade Center in Kempton Park, where the negotiations were taking place. They broke through the glass front of the building with an armored vehicle and briefly took over the negotiations chamber. The climate of violence would continue into 1994.
In the last months leading up to the election, there were reportedly as many as 10,000 people killed in related violence. There were bombs going off, bombs at what is now Oliver Tambo International Airport, a bomb in downtown Johannesburg, homeland leaders refusing to come into the process. Things were very, very tense.
And with barely a week to go before the elections, the IFP decided to register the party. But the ballot papers had already been printed, so a contingency plan had to be devised. Stickers of the party had to be hastily affixed by hand at the bottom of each ballot paper. It was a costly exercise, but one that would ensure a 95% voter turnout on election day. Then came the 27th of April 1994, a day that would formally mark an end to apartheid. The election was going to be an African election for Africans and by Africans, and because most of the voters were going to be voting for the first time, there was simply no common voters' roll to speak of.
Our first task was to ensure that every citizen of this nation who's eligible to vote, who's 18 years of age, should be on the voters' roll before they vote. We had to demarcate the country into various units because we wanted to make sure that everyone is treated equally, because that's what the Constitution also says.
And as voting got underway, reports of long queues and shortages of voting materials started filtering through the media. But the euphoria in the air was nothing short of magical. There was no violence and only a few spoiled ballots were reported. On the day, over 19 million voters turned out for the historic poll.
South Africa is a very dynamic society, very vibrant. Politically, in all respects, we voice our views very strongly. But the interesting thing about South Africa is when it comes to elections, we come together. We go, we make sure that those elections are a success.
So there you go, a quick look at the story of democracy in South Africa, how it came about, and why your vote on May 7 is so important, as the President was urging us. Well, let's get a final thoughts from our guests as you came in with different experiences in 1994, 20 years down the line now. What are your thoughts on this Freedom Day and the future of South Africa? Very briefly, in 30 seconds each.
All right, first and foremost, I would like to salute the spirit of O.R. Tambo, the spirit of Nelson Mandela. We are here today because of all the work and dedication you've done for this country and for us. And I would also say to the youth of this country, let's not forget, let's not take this freedom for granted. There's a lot that our leaders have done for us to be here. Yes, it's not perfect, but we're moving on somewhere, and we have to build and focus on our history. Let's not be scared of it. Focus on our history, face it, and move forward, build as a country.
Tell me, 30 seconds.
The Born Frees, this is an opportunity for them to build South Africa. The ANC, the Madibas, the OR Tambos fought for South Africa. Now we have an opportunity to build South Africa.
All right.
This book is available at Exclusive Books.
Okay.
20 years of democracy, for better or for worse.
All right.
Let's remove the West and make sure that it's a great country.
Unfortunately, we run out of time and we're going to have to leave it there. But thank you all very much indeed for joining us on this day. And we wish you a very, very happy Freedom Day. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.